Hi, and welcome to another episode of the Mainframe Book Club. I have with me today Stephen. Obviously, Stephen, I know who you are. So, would you like to tell everyone who you are and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Well, I spent the last 23 years as a front-end web developer, and then after I was laid off, I've discovered the mainframe and thought, "Oh my goodness, this makes complete sense. I don't know how I didn't get into this earlier." And so for the last since January, I've been pursuing mainframe training, and then in I think March, I found Emma, and that's when things just really exploded. Is through the training with Emma and being able to have more than 14 days of experience on the mainframe. And so now I have a YouTube channel. I also have a website where I write, and then I'm also a subject matter expert for Emma. And through that, I'll be starting to write labs and things like that for them as well.
And I also know that you've got a couple of other things that are related to the mainframe that have caught my interest or caught my eye, I should say. So, would you like to tell us all about your hobbies of bookbinding and your t-shirts, which are quite interesting as well and quite funky?
Yeah, I was I started out as a wood carver, and then during the height of the dark ages with COVID, wood prices, especially hardwood, got very, very expensive. And I stumbled into a bookstore here locally, and the guy was a bookbinder himself, did book repair, and he said, "Hey, do you want to learn about this?" Oh yeah, I'm a lifelong learner. I love learning about things. And so I got hooked into the art of repairing books, and I became a bookbinder and a repairman, and it's such an incredible hobby. There's so much to learn about it. You know, your whole life you're told avoid heat and water with books, and then it turns out to repair them you have to use heat and water. And so like, well, this is like having to rewire my brain here. How do I anyway, you get there and it's a fiddly hobby too.
Would you like to tell us a little bit about some of your t-shirts as well? And then we'll move on to your soft skills as such.
Yep. So a couple weeks ago, I got a wild hair, and I said I'm going to start designing some T-shirts because I thought I had some really good ideas. And so I got to talk with Stephen Perva, and he helped me figure out where to get these on the web. And now I have a printful shop where I have shirts like I ain't afraid of no green screen because I'm a movie buff and I love Ghostbusters. So that was the first one I had. And then I have a Star Wars one that says I'm how is it? May the code be with you. Yep. And there's all kinds of new ones up there all the time. I'm always coming up with weird ideas, and if they sell, they sell. If not, it's a fun extra side hobby to say, hey, I designed T-shirts for a while.
We move on from t-shirts to let me ask you about your soft skills because we could talk about a lot of topics. So let me ask you, as someone who's come to the mainframe, who's taken that decision to switch, and you're looking at becoming an aspiring mainframe developer, what are some of the soft skills that you've seen or that you found useful in coming across? Are there any websites, any forums, any thoughts, books, or skills that you've taken from your previous role and brought across?
As far as books, there's been quite a few books. One of the first books I got was it was by Mike Murek from 1972, and that having that context of how punch cards worked and things like that, that was a really interesting book. It cost me $200 because I got a ticket on the way up there to get it. So that was one of the most expensive books I've ever bought. And the soft skills, I mean, being able to mentor someone is huge, and not just mentor them, but teach them the stuff that nobody else is going to teach them. It's one thing to say, well, go to 3.4 and do whatever, but it's another to go a step deeper and say, well, here are all the other things, and here's why we do this.
And that's a great point here that although you're new to Z, and we may as well bring this up now. I know that you've got a number of skills from languages that you've used that you could also use on the mainframe, such as REXX. And when we look at your bookshelf, you'll see all the different languages that you've been exposed to as you've come across to the mainframe. And in certain ways, I think your previous skills give you a unique edge because you'll have an understanding that will be different from other mainframers. So again, if you're going to be new into an industry, just have a thought about what skills you bring across. You've mentioned mentoring. I know that you've got REXX. I know that you've got some Java skills. I know you've got a lot of other languages as well, which we'll see on your bookshelf. But the ability to learn, the ability of mentoring and creating documentation has meant that when you joined Emma, which we'll come on to in a second, it's given you a really good starting platform. Mm-hmm. You've come from front-end web developer, you're aspiring to be a mainframe developer. Where did you go and what resources and books, etc., have you been looking at to try and help you make that switch? Has there been any training courses? Has there been any websites, any forums, any people you've connected with? Let's shoot the breeze and find a little bit more about your journey so far at some point, and just mention a couple of those books that you've read over the years. I know Murex obviously is like a Bible. Is there any other like REXX books you've read or mainframe books that you think were useful in the past? Because I know you said you did look at mainframe a long time ago, so.
Oh yeah, I read. Well, I don't know if I read a book called Sam's Teach Yourself COBOL in 24 Hours. I think it was back in 2002, maybe 2003. And when I looked at that, I thought, no, this doesn't seem like anything that I'm going to be into. But then over the years, COBOL has snuck back into my life in various places, including and just my love of old languages in general, because I also learned Fortran. And the reason I learned Fortran was because, I saw Colossal Cave Adventure, and I realized it was written in Fortran, but I couldn't understand it. So I said, okay, I taught myself Fortran. I taught myself Fortran in about a 7-day period, 1 week period. Okay. And then with that, I started rewriting the original Oregon Trail was written in BASIC. And so I started figuring out how do I rewrite that in Fortran. COBOL for Dummies, which is a great introduction to COBOL. And I wish there was an assembler for dummies too, but there's not. I've also got some older books from the Burroughs Corporation, which have been really interesting to go back and read about ferrite core memory and vacuum tube, how they stored things on vacuum tubes. It's very interesting. And then I have a few other older books as well. I like the older books because you learn stuff that you don't find in the newer books. Yes. The little tips and tricks there. Like I read a book that's probably 20 or 30 years old, and it actually explains software, hardware, and logical tabs better than anything I've seen out there today.
This is very true.
So
I've heard
don't be
this so many
afraid to.
times. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I've heard this so many times where there's value from old books, and it partly explains why you see some old books still holding their value really well, because there is some great information in some of these old books. It's written in a clearer, more easy to understand way, and it can be really useful as a building block to help you learn. So yeah, that's great advice as well. And
Doug Lowe. Oops, sorry.
No, go on.
Doug Lowe has 2 books, NVS TSO Concepts and ISPF, and then he has a companion one that goes over, I think it's NVS Part 2. It goes over CList and REXX. And that is an incredible amount of information that is in those 2 books. And even though they are a little bit older and out of print, there's so much information in them that I just haven't found anywhere else. And just like a lot of these older, like I have Kicks for the COBOL Programmer, and that's published in the 80s. but there's a wealth of information in there that I just haven't found other places. I also have a VSAM for the COBOL programmer. VSAM is its own specialty. You can pretty much, if you're a VSAM person, you can I don't know what I'm trying to say here, but VSAM people can basically write their own meal ticket because it's such a interesting topic, and it's almost like a specialty to be a VSAM expert.
It was interesting that you say that because I know that it's not just a case of you becoming the SME or subject matter expert for REXX and ISPF, as you said there. It's also the fact that you've got within Emma, you've got the staff reviewing what you do and working with you to help you become that subject matter expert. So that's a really interesting way of working, that you're kind of working in partnership and growing your skills in a way that works for you. You've also put together a website. So do you want to just give the name of your website? Because it's quite a good one.
Yep, it is Stephen, STEPHEN .codes, CODES. Stephen Codes is my personal website. It only took me 23 years to make one. And when I did it, I thought, okay, well, I really like learning about my journey with the mainframe. So I thought, oh, I'll share it. I'll use it as a portfolio piece, because then employers can come to it. They can see, oh, wait, not only is this fella trying to become a mainframe developer, but he understands it well enough to describe it to other people. And so I deliberately, using Figma, I deliberately made it look mainframe-like, or at least old school-like. I used IBM Plex Mono, which is a great font from IBM, and I went with it, and I think it's a nice site. It was, all these years you don't really ever get to play and do the things you want to do with sites. You have clients who want you to do something specific, and so with this one, I got to like, here's all my skills as a front-end web developer, as a person who can design websites. Here it is, and that's where that evolved into, and now I've gone back, and those early courses, those early explanations I did of edit commands. Well, I have videos for those too. So there's companion videos to each of those. So a person can come there and they can choose their path. Do they want to read or do they want to watch a video? Yeah. And that's so I took the approach of, in medical school, I'm told there's a learn one, do one, teach one method. And so that's the thing that I've approached it as. I'm gonna learn about it, then I'm gonna do it, and then I'm gonna try to teach someone else how to do it. And it's worked out well. And just to talk about Emma again, they have a Tech Talk Tuesday, and this is an opportunity where even if you're not the best presenter and you know something that's really beneficial to the community, you have the opportunity to go and teach people about that topic. And maybe someone who has additional knowledge about that topic will chime in and say, oh, did you know about this? Or you didn't talk about this? And then it really helps to grow your public speaking and your teaching abilities. And it's a very unique opportunity, because a lot of times you only hear from very, very experienced speakers. And so having this ability to learn getting this opportunity to teach and do public speaking, it's an incredible opportunity. And it's something that I think separates Emma from Coursera, where you have a text forum and you hope that somebody responds with a question or answer.
Yeah, 100%. The fact that you're also going to write documentation that will be reviewed makes it very interesting for me. The concept of a way of learning, I think, is a really interesting concept. Are there any other places that you've visited? I know you mentioned Reddit. Have you looked on YouTube? Have you read? I know you mentioned Murex. So is there any books that you've read recently that you think have helped, or any websites, forums that you've gone to that help with the mainframe and learning new skills?
I think that YouTube has a wealth of information, and I've used a lot of YouTube videos there. You have to be a bit discerning as to which ones you use. I
Hmm.
think it's some of them there's a level of quality between some of the videos, and so I look for ones that have a little bit better production value. I have nothing wrong with, if you're just starting out on YouTube, you probably don't have the greatest setup. But if you're trying to teach me something and you record your 1440 desktop, I can't watch that from my couch, which
Yep.
is where I'd like to watch a video. So I look for instructors or demonstrations on YouTube where they've got a really nice cutout of what they're teaching, and so you can actually see the text from a reasonable distance. And so that's what I'm looking for when I'm looking at YouTube for training videos is, can I see it from my couch? Is the audio okay? Because that's another thing that drives me bonkers. And I got a story about this because I'm hard of hearing.
Hmm.
And there was this one time at Slalom Consulting where I got a request to build a demo for CES, and it was supposed to be a 3-month contract. But because of my terrible hearing, I heard them in, say, 3 days. And so I got it on Friday, and by Monday morning, I sent it in and said, "Hey, here's everything." And the guy at the other end of it was like, "What the hell do I do with you now?" So it was that's just one of those things that it happens with me sometimes. I'll mishear something. So um, when I'm looking for a YouTube video, I want to be able to hear and understand the person who's speaking as well, because I don't want, if I mishear it, then I learn it wrong. And so that's another tip. If you're doing YouTube videos, add closed captions. Go back and actually manually do them, because YouTube can only do so well with its AI.
So is there anything else, Stephen, before we go?
I would add that learn how to write documentation and good error messages, because these are two things that you really can use to separate yourself
Hmm.
from a lot of other candidates. Is uh, nobody likes to write documentation unless you're kind of weird like me, and then you love writing documentation. But learn how to write documentation and write good documentation, and then you know yeah, just be able to do that. And then error messages. I've seen some really garbage error messages. So uh, go and research some of the front end UX information on how to write error messages. And I think that's something that you can transfer over when you're going to the mainframe. Is how do you write those good error messages that don't leave people scratching their head? Like, I don't know what 5 numbers is, but if you give me a hint, then I can easily find out what it is. I would add that don't be afraid to learn about history, the computer history too,
Hmm.
because there's so much information there. Why were the punch cards a certain size?
Hmm.
Well, it's because that was the U.S. currency size at the time. Douglas Engelbart. When I was contracting at Amazon, he passed away, and only myself and my friend knew who Douglas Engelbart was and why he was so important to computing history. This is the guy who gave us the mouse, even though nobody knows who he is. Without people like that,
Hmm.
you got to know where you came from in order to know why in order to know how to do things now. No, I don't know how I'm going to say that, but you got to know where you came from to know where you're going. And people, you just learn about these people. We learn about Steve Jobs and all these Jeff Bezoses, but those aren't the people who. There's a whole host of people who built things that made those people famous.
All
And
right.
so try to learn about those people, the unsung heroes of the computing industry. Yep. Thank you as well for this opportunity. I love it.